This is Karl talking management for the Globe and Mail. Today I'm delighted to speak to Mark Mortensen from INSEAD. So Mark, when you're thinking about it, we're much more apt to be part of global teams, very different than a team in my own city, my own building. What are a couple of things that we've learned about how to be more effective in this role?
So global teams are something that people have been very, very excited about in recent years, from academic standards in recent years, which means the last 15 or so years. It's been a very hot topic. People get all excited when people come in. I mean, at INSEAD we have a program on managing global virtual teams, and we have people who are always, chomping at the bit. How do I do this better? How do I figure out, what's the magic sauce? How do we get these things to work? The short answer, of course, as is always the case, is there isn't a magic sauce. There isn't one thing. But one of the things that I push people on a lot is there are the obvious things people immediately think about. Culture. How do I work with somebody who's different from me? Working across language. How do I work with somebody who speaks differently, where there's a language barrier, there's power differences based on how comfortable or not we are. One of my co-authors and very good friend, Sidal Neely at Harvard Business School, has done some great work understanding how language affects power and dynamics and things like that. These things are critical. What I tend to do is I sort of back people up and say there are actually a couple things that I think you have to think about even before that, and which we typically don't focus on. And those two are one has to do with a shared sense of identity, and the other has to do with a shared understanding. And so they're very comparable, they're very parallel, but they play two very different roles. The first is very simple. Based on everything we know about psychology and the way our brain works, we're really good and we like to simplify the world, to make buckets. We group people in different ways. And we very typically group it into us and them. And any manager thinking about it, just ask yourself a very simple question. How often in your global team do you ever talk about, well, they do blah, 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 blah. And well, we do this, but they do that. Right? We make these categorizations, we group people into us and them, and that fundamentally affects the way we view those other people. Typically, we view us, very positively, we view them not so positively. So the first thing has to do with, well, how do we think about that? What can we do to make sure that the team doesn't fracture along the fact that some of us are working in France, some of us are working in Japan, some of us are working in Canada, some of us are working in Mexico, and thinking about those differences first and foremost to what's our real goal, what's our superordinate purpose, our goal that really focuses us in and gets us aligned in the way in which we're thinking, and particularly in thinking about who we actually are. The more we can do that, the better. That's a very critical first step. Second piece of the puzzle is this idea of shared understanding. And very simply put, you don't know the same stuff that I know. And that's for very obvious reasons. And this is not just about work, this is about things as simple and seemingly different as, what's the weather like? I think everybody recognizes if it's been raining for the last 6 weeks and gray and cold and miserable, everyone in the office is not at their best. They're not the most friendly. They're shorter, in their responses. They're quicker to get angry. All the stuff that we know about basic psychology from something as simple as the rain. Well, how often when you're having a video conference with somebody on the other side of the world do you say, well, let me just tell you first, it's been raining for 3 weeks. We don't do that. We focus on the work. Everything we know about communicating across different technological media, we focus very, very strongly on the work, less on the exogenous stuff. So this is the second piece of the puzzle. It's not just about feeling like we're the same group, it's also about knowing that we actually know the same information. Information about the task, information about the people, but also information about the environment, about how things are going, all sorts of other things. The informal hallway water cooler conversations, things like that. Those are much harder to have when you're working globally, but they also have a much bigger payoff at the same time.